Do you see this?
And he also wears a space helmet.
So I'm still pushing like I'm back to him. Homie spotted me like 700, brought 1100 right back to him. If I can't do it, then it ain't real. I just make dollars, I don't make deals. I've been going hard in the paint, still blowing kush clouds till I can't feel like. Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel.
What's up, motherfuckers? Matt Monday Moto. That is the Corolla's header. It's fucking badass. Danny Tran DTR headers built this. Do you see this? In the following video, you're going to see him build it. As you saw in the last video, I created a header constraint template and a downpipe template that I sent to Danny Tran. He then took that and created this prototype header. Now, this is a prototype header. This is not how Danny makes all of his headers. He actually will take a prototype and create fixtures and stuff to make reproducing it much more efficient and easy. One other thing to note, Danny makes all of his own collectors. 2-to-1, 4-to-1, he fucking does it all. That is not included in this video because he has created fixtures that allow him to do this, that it's not in his best interest to show. So, I thank you, Danny. I love the video that you sent, and I appreciate everything you've done, and I hope you guys like it, and if you do, please subscribe, I don't know, share it, I don't know, turn on the notifications thing, comment, whatever you want. Tell your sister to call me, whatever you want to do, okay? Just show some love. Hope you guys liked the video, appreciate it. I'm 35 years old. Would you have guessed? 35. I need to go home. It's late. It's like 8 o'clock.
Now we're over at Danny's shop, and you can see he's got the collector already put it in the downpipe template, and he's gonna go ahead and mount it up so we can start running tubes. Now you can see here he's using these orange plastic mock-up tubes. This is from a company called Ice Engine Works. Now this allows him to design the runner without having to cut metal, and each one of these has a specific bend that they are and specific length, so he can use these to determine bends and length at the same time. They're very handy. They speed up the process quite a lot. And you can also see he's already got the other two runners made. Alright, next up he's gonna test fit the oil filter because it is a pretty tight fit on that. It's also a tight fit on the VTEC solenoid, but everything clears just fine with ample room for heat. Now over in the bandsaw he's going to start sectioning off pieces of the tube so we can start mimicking the bends. Now this is called a swaging tool. Now he uses this because these radiuses have shrinkage in them, and he needs to open them back up so they are a nice tight fit in the tubes they're going to be slipping into. Okay, now he's over on the belt sander just squaring up the cut. That way it'll allow a nice tight weld when he's got it slipped over. Okay, now back over on the manifold. He's got half that pipe made. He's working his way backwards. Now he's using these Ice Engine Works to show him the bends he needs. Tacking them together piece by piece. back over on the manifold. Okay, now you can see he's using this blue marker to denote how far the tube is slipped inside the next step, and that'll allow him to that'll allow, when he pulls this apart, to show how much he wants to slide inside the next tube, and he allows about 1/4 inch, so it's consistent between all the runners. Over on the bandsaw, cutting that. Back to the swaging tool to open up that bend. As I said, whenever you bend metal, even on a mandrel bend, you have to shrink and stretch metal to make it turn. So no matter what, even though it's a mandrel bend, there's still a little bit of shrinkage inside, basically like ovals. So he uses this tool to get it back to circular shape. You can see he's making good progress here. He's got that one all made. Okay, now we're getting into the metal finishing, and so these mandrel bends from the manufacturer come with quite a bit of tooling marks and stuff on them. So as you can see here, he's creating a grain structure in each piece, and he's doing this as he's got them tacked together. He's doing inside and outside, so he has to do this prior to welding. That way, whenever he welds it, all of his temperature and stuff shows up in the weld because it looks cool. And the metal will have a nice grain structure to it. It's the details that matter here. Now he's going to use a blue towel and some cleaner to knock off any of the contaminants. That way his welds are nice and clean. TIG welding is very critical on cleanliness. If you want a nice clean weld, you need good gas coverage and a good clean piece. Okay, here you can see that he's using this mock-up block and head. He's got everything. He's got my constraint template and downpipe template all bolted to that. You can kind of see how he's built it all off the side. And again, this is a prototype. This is how he builds a prototype header. Okay, now using all the fixtures still on the block, all the runners placed into the collector and into the header flange, now he can start tacking up each runner to itself, not tacking it into the slip and not tacking it to the flange just yet. This way he can pull each runner out as a whole and weld them up on the bench. That way he can get good angles on his tungsten and his welding torch and get nice consistent welds across. Now you can see he's over in the vise on the bench with one of the runners, and he's going to start welding. Notice how big his gas cup is. Also notice the plug in the pipe. So this is called back purging. He's putting the gas that flows out of the torch also into the inside of the pipe. This allows the weld that protrudes inside the pipe to look as nice as the weld on the outside. There you go, one of the runners all welded up. There you go, all the runners on the table, all welded up. Notice the grain structure. Okay, now he's going to take each runner one by one, place them back into the collector and back into the header flange. Takes a little bit of convincing with a soft hammer. Okay, now that he's got all the runners welded up, all into the collector, all into the flange, he's going to go ahead and tack each runner to the flange itself while it's still bolted to the mock-up block. Just a couple small tacks will do. So Danny uses a 1/4 inch header flange. So the benefit of this is that it's very lightweight. The downside is that it's pretty difficult to weld, and extra care needs to be taken when welding it. So as you see here, he's going to bolt the entire flange down with every bolt hole to a big aluminum fixture, which is basically working as a heat sink. That way it pulls heat out of the flange quickly. It minimizes warpage. And now you can see this is some very tight, awkward welding. And to do this, he's using filler rod, and he's got his tungsten pushed out of the torch very far, which again requires a large gas cup. And he's back purging this as well. I think this shows the skill that Danny has. If you watch the angles that he's having to weld at, it's a very awkward spot to get into. You've got to lay the tungsten over real far. You can see here he's welding with the torch on one side, filler rod on the other, and he's just kind of peeking through the backside. And you can see some of these welds, how nice they look. Okay, now that he's got that all welded up, it'll come off of the heat sink after it's cooled down. Okay, now over onto the bench, he'll put down something soft because he doesn't want to scratch up any of that graining he spent so much time on prior. And he's going to put a big, heavy, soft bag on this. And now he's going to dowel the flange. And that's a doweling tool there, and it's basically a blunt, it's like a ball-edged punch. And he's taking the runner that protrudes into the flange and punching it out to the size of the flange itself. This way he can come in here and weld that on the back side as well. And notice he's not using any filler rod, this is just a fillet weld. You can see there, all welded up. Now he comes in with a carbide and cleans up any issue or any protrusion from welds. A lot of time in the details with Danny. Now he's coming in with a piece of sandpaper. Going to further beautify the inside of the flange area. Okay, now he's going to start working on the merge, the exit from the collector. So he's got himself a transition cone here. Goes from the pinch size of the collector to the size of my exhaust, which is 3-inch. You can see he's got a couple V-bands, inserting the tube into the V-band flange. He's going to go ahead and clamp that with the V-band to keep warping out of the flange itself. And he's going to go ahead and tack those together. Okay, now this is pretty cool. This is basically a welding turret of sorts. You can see it spins at a steady speed, and he's got his pulse set to where he can just kind of pulse and go. And again, he's filleting, no rod, just basically using the metal from the V-band flange to weld to the pipe. And notice also the back purging. This is also getting back purged. Quickly he's going to flip it around, do the other side. Now back on the bench, soft rag down, again so he doesn't scratch any of that texturing he put into it. He's going to mark the collector for the runners. And now he's going to remove the collector from the runners. Now he's going to weld the transition cone onto the collector, again in the turret and also back perched. This time he's using some rod. Notice how far he's able to get that tungsten to stick out of that cup. That allows him nice access to the torch and easy access with the filler rod. Okay, now he's got his spring tabs. He's got 8 of these. He's got to prep and prepare for welding. Okay, now to locate the spring tabs on the runners. And as you can see here, he's got a little fixture tool to make this a little easier on himself. Okay, spring tabs are on. Now he's got a brass hammer. He's gonna go ahead and fit the spring tabs to the runners, kind of round the edges a little bit, make the weld nice and tight. Okay, now the collector comes off the runner yet again. Now he's going to install a dummy slip collector. Now, this is interesting because as he's resurfacing the header flange, he needs to hold the runners in the collector basically. Because of the thin 1/4-inch flange, there can be warpage from the runners moving around. So he puts that dummy slip on so the flange stays nice and true. And he also wears a space helmet for reasons unknown. Some deburring of the flange. Finally, some tape to protect the flange. And I'm proud to be an American, well, at least I know I'm free. Okay, now he's got a little logo of his that he's going to go ahead and put some grain structure into it. Getting down to the final touches here. Pick a good spot on the header. Branding to show that he's proud of his work. He's going to just put a couple little tacks on this, a little wood hammer to curve the logo for the runner. Last couple tacks here. Now to install the electro-coated nitride blue stainless steel springs. These things look real sweet. They look like blue titanium, but they are in fact stainless steel. I don't think titanium makes a good spring. There you go, finished piece. Beautiful custom header. Short, big tube, all the RPM. Not a lot of these headers floating around for a serious all-motor rear-wheel drive setup.
Go the other way? All to get the shot of this.
Yeah. This is actually my engine, by the way. This isn't just a mock-up engine. This is truly the Corolla's engine. We'll do a video about it. Definitely need to do a video about it. It's actually got to come apart still. I built it originally with 12.5 to 1. I was going to run pump gassing, but I was like, no, fuck that. I want E85. So up the compression, bigger dome piston. I need to swap that all into this thing. It's actually been together for a really long time. It's kind of what I do for a living. I don't know if you know that. I'm a professional Honda engine builder. Been doing it a long time. I've actually built a lot of like record-setting engines. It's kind of a thing. I don't know if you knew that.